What is a full circle clown? A full circle clown is somebody who pretends to go from uninformed to being enlightened and then right back to their uninformed, ignorant ways. And today we're going to spotlight on this beautiful Friday a uninformed full circle clown. Her name is Jillian Michaels. And we're going to show you her 5-year-old childlike storm out on a show she's supposed to be the host of, and then her brutal explanation. And we'll break down very quickly and very easily why her explanation is pathetic. Stay tuned for this one.
Because this is the day after. How do you think that summit went? Like, how do you think it?
He seemed annoyed by it, at the very least.
Annoyed.
Yeah.
All right, let's play this.
They have a lot of explaining to do, a lot of decoupling to do, because Jewish donors have been the number one funding mechanism of radical, open border, neoliberal, quasi-Marxist policy. And Jewish donors, they have a lot of explaining to do, a lot of decoupling to do, because Jewish donors have been the number one funding mechanism of radical, open border, neoliberal, quasi-Marxist policies, cultural institutions, and nonprofits. This is a beast created by secular Jews. And now it's coming for Jews, and they're like, what on earth happened? And it's not just the colleges. It's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it. It's like, time for you guys to wake up and say no more, draw a line in the sand. I don't care if you hate me.
I mean, I can narrow it down. I can narrow it down. It's George Soros who's primarily funding all of this.
But what does that have to do with him being critical about what's going on in Gaza?
Because he's been increasingly
saying all
critical.
of you liberal institutions that are now being killed off by your own Frankenstein, like these things that you created, wake up and pay attention.
He was critical. So he was definitely critical of the pressure he was getting from his donors.
Fair, but there is absolutely no evidence whatsoever, quite to the contrary.
Well, apparently he was offered $150 million, $150 million infusion.
The importance of why I'm showing you this is that clip from Kirk, along with some others that have been circling around in the last couple of weeks, is just the context of his individual angle. This guy was always supportive of Israel. He's not an anti-Semite. He's definitely somebody who has consistently said that Israel is an ally to the U.S. That's his opinion. But in recent months and weeks, but leading up to his death, he started to point out his issue with the elongation of the bombing in Gaza, and then his critique of what he perceived as the liberal monster that was created, in his words, by secular Jews coming back for them, meaning college campuses where the kids are chanting "River to the Sea" and being pro-Hamas, being unable to distinguish between terrorism and citizens, and vice versa. He blamed that on the media and the college liberal institutions that he claims are all run by the Jewish establishment in the United States. So that's the context with which his critique of the American support for Israel is coming. Now, beyond this, he had been critical of Netanyahu on the standpoint that when he said you should curb the war, when he said don't bomb Iran to President Trump, he was given pushback by people who are working with or supportive of Bibi Netanyahu, meaning the donors not only to Israel, but to Turning Point USA and obviously AIPAC. So this is the context with which this conversation is coming up. This is not a conspiracy. As you could see, that's Charlie Kirk in his own words. So it's important to remember this as they talk. This is not a conspiracy talk. This is not accusations of murder. This is just him talking, and the context with which Jillian Michaels is unable to process that Charlie Kirk himself had a different opinion about the situation in America and Israel.
into Turning Point USA, which would have then
There's no
doubled.
proof of that. In fact, the opposite is true. And even PBD showed that on his show.
I mean,
that this came from a guy who writes for like radical.
Max Blumenthal.
We
We're talking about Max Blumenthal, Gray Zone.
We have his reporting to be PBD debunking that.
I actually found his reporting to be fairly credible. I mean,
play it.
It was validated
corroborated
by Tucker Carlson.
Play the clip, please.
If you look at this one, this is AF Post. They said, according to multiple reports, Israel Prime Minister offered Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA, $150 million in cash to adopt an even more pro-Israel stance. Kirk refused the money. If you go a little bit lower, look at the amount of views this thing got. 7.2 million views, 160,000 likes.
Who's the
And then there's
AF
another
Post?
post, Rob, if you can pull up the other one that says, right below it, that says, the journalist behind the report accusing Bibi of offering $150 million is Max Blumenthal, a man who used to work for the Iran-backed newspaper Al Akbar in Beirut and
also
contributed
Jewish?
to Al Jazeera.
He is, yeah.
I mean,
Why is it
so-
every time we track down a lie, we end up finding people connected to Qatar or Iran?
There's no
behind
proof this
it?
ever happened.
So
None.
Wait, how does that debunk the fact
So
that?
he just read it. and
Where's
then-
your proof that $150 million was offered from Bibi Netanyahu?
No, I'm referring.
Where is
wait,
the proof?
Please do not get any.
No, because I didn't want to cover this, and you guys insisted. And I
Because
told
it's
you,
what the
you cover this
marketplace is
shit,
talking
I'm gonna
about.
rip you apart. Where is the proof?
We're not
that
saying
Bibi
that it happened.
Netanyahu
We're really not
offered Charlie
saying that it
$150 million.
Jillian,
Okay, so we're not.
Okay,
so
what we're
conversely,
reporting on is
now
people
there
in
is
the
this-
marketplace, what they're saying. This is a discussion that's happening literally everywhere. We would be remiss if we didn't cover
It's
it
a
to
week
debunk it.
old, this conversation.
It's still-
over
I mean,
a
it's
week.
still
That
pretty prevalent.
is a week old.
It's still going on, Jillian.
Okay, well, nevertheless, where is the proof that actually
Jillian,
happened?
I just said, according to this guy's reporting, he was offered $150 million.
Okay,
that was
Wasn't it
where's
also
the proof of
corroborated
that?
by Candace?
It was
And then
corroborated by
Carlson.
Candace, and not only that, by
Candace.
Nick.
And also
Okay,
Mac
because
Bates,
that's,
like,
listen, I like Candace. She has, people from his own team have said he has not seen her in years.
And yet last year they were on tour together. Last year they were on tour together.
Wait,
So that
no.
debunked that
Wait, if
instantly.
you want
That
to talk about
completely
people on
debunked
his
that.
team,
Last time they've been on camera together was
Andrew, his
2023.
press
No, it was last
Wait,
year.
hold on,
They have a
Andrew,
tour
that
posted
guy
together.
was
Like,
like,
Okay,
so
so
guys,
everybody
let's
on
calm
his
down.
team
Let's just calm down
has
for a second.
subsequently said this is not true.
No, they
His
never- they
pastor,
never- they actually-
Colvin,
they
Eric
ne-
Balling, all of them are like, yeah.
Okay, Eric Bowling thought that he had two daughters.
It's building,
okay, so I'm
folks.
not gonna
Okay,
really
Andrew
put much-
Colvin. The narrative is not true.
Andrew said,
Charlie has a cordial relationship with Ackman. There's no black woman,
also
no intervention.
He said,
Nothing
that
like what
same
Candace is
Andrew
suggesting.
said, that same Andrew said that
Okay.
Candace and Charlie remain friends.
Th-
I just want to make
He's
sure.
saying this is not true.
But they were literally touring together last
Nothing
year.
like what Candace is suggesting. What does it have to do with
Wait,
their
what does
friendship?
that have to do with you? Just
Kirk even in one of his more recent episodes had even said in a segment that they were going to bring Candace on. So I mean the idea that they weren't in communication and all that's just not accurate. Kirk's wife even followed Candace on Instagram. Just throwing that out there.
What does that have to do with their friendship? He's
Jillian,
saying
you're
what
tell-
Candace
I
is
can't
suggesting.
engage with you if you don't
He is
calm
saying
down.
what Candace is suggesting is not true.
He's talking about her suggesting Israel killed him. We're talking
Right,
about
yes.
100. Please do not conflate the two because
Okay,
they're completely
well,
distinct.
unilaterally across the board now, we've got multiple accusations that all pile up to the same exact.
No, I think it's the furries. It's the furries. I think it's the furries. But a lot of people.
I don't know, and I don't look.
There's
for those who are
zero
saying,
evidence to suggest none.
Okay, you're
zero.
saying-
guys, can we just
Even
stop for a
David
second? This is
Smith
ridiculous.
is like, this is absurd.
Like this whole thing is ridiculous. There are two things being conflated right now. There are conspiracy theorists who think Israel killed Charlie Kirk. They have yet to provide a shred of evidence proving that. Done. End
We're
of
not
story.
talking about that,
I am
Jillian.
talking about something
You
entirely
were talking
different.
about
no,
that.
we're not. Hold on.
Oh, you
Let
were
me
talking
finish
about
my
that.
fucking thought. Okay, the real issue here is that before most people even knew that Charlie Kirk was dead, you have Netanyahu giving multiple interviews talking about how, using the fucking moment for his own political purposes, like the fucking
That's
ghoul that he is.
totally
Let me finish my
different
point.
than him killing Charlie Kirk.
Did I not
never
just?
said that.
I literally
Okay, so
just
now we're just gonna make
Let
a
me finish
sidebar
my
to-
point, Jillian, because none of us can finish the damn point without someone else jumping down your throat. I don't think that Israel killed him because there's no evidence of that. But I had a problem with Netanyahu exploiting an assassination in this country for his own political means and purposes and lying about the nature of his relationship with Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk didn't like Netanyahu, just like any warm-blooded American shouldn't.
Okay, so obviously now she's giving an opinion, but the first part that she's talking about is, again, the nature of the relationship and the nature of the change in tone from Charlie Kirk is what is being ignored or being manipulated by the Ben Shapiros and the BB, all the foot soldiers. And Jillian, in this particular episode, is acting like one of those foot soldiers. This is what leads her to go completely off the rails and walk out, because she cannot handle any kind of conversation. It's fine to defend Israel. It's fine to love Bibi. It's fine to be a Zionist. It's all an opinion, and you're allowed to have your opinions. And you can even you can be a loyal person to another nation if you choose to. That's fine. But this is a forum for free speech, and it's a forum to debate topics that are current. And I don't understand how she can go off the handle when all that's being said here is that the nature of the relationship and the commentary from Kirk had changed, and these are the things that are driving and fueling that conversation. She doesn't even want to talk about it.
Netanyahu is a bad guy. And he wanted to make it seem like, no, we were all great. We were good. We had a great relationship. Little did we know behind the scenes, there was a lot of pressure towards
ends up being about how do we bash Israel. This is not for me. I'm not interested in this.
Okay,
I love you
know.
guys.
I'm
sorry.
Let's be good. Let's be good about precious
interest
Israel. Let the country committing a genocide. Yeah. Okay.
Zero. I think you guys are great. I fundamentally disagree with you about like every show doing this. I'm sorry.
Cool. So can we continue the conversation?
Yeah, let's not. Let's.
Okay.
You wanted to do it anyway.
Finish the last topic.
All right.
All right.
Wow. Okay, guys. So again, to clarify, I don't think Israel did it. And you want to know what's crazy is the person who is labeled the #1 anti-Semite out there, who has been.
Okay, so that's her walking out. And now we'll go to her explanation.
So as I become increasingly uncomfortable with regard to her level of hostility on the subject matter, I wanted to tone down the rhetoric on our show. This is our show. And PBD basically said to me, you're the point guard, you're the tip of the spear, you're in charge, right? Everybody has their own platform. Sure, freedom of speech, 100%. It doesn't mean I have to participate in it. And it doesn't mean you don't respect and appreciate my boundaries. And it doesn't mean you mislead me.
The best of Europe, 11 days, just $27.49, including flights.
Apologize.
In particular, with regard to which direction you're planning on going here. And what I mean by that is I had begun to say, I would like to back off the Israel topics for a while. Every single show, for the most part, was like, let's talk about how awful Israel is. Let's talk about how awful Israel is. I'm not an expert. There's no one there to push back. You weren't there to push back. Batia wasn't there to push back. Coleman Hughes wasn't there to push back. There's nobody on the other side presenting a fair case. And I said, you know what, guys, let's taper off this. We didn't taper off of it. The night before, I see the segment about Tyler Robinson that was meant to discuss some of the conspiracy theories in particular.
Okay, so right off the bat, this is a horrible, horrible commentary. Number one, how do you decide that you want to taper off talking about Israel when it's one of the most talked about subject matters in the world today, especially in the week of the UN? I mean, that's just incredibly stupid for somebody who signed up to be the quote-unquote point guard of a podcast that's going to talk about current events. So that's just all around atrocious, okay? Number two, I don't understand why she's saying she's not an expert, nobody's an expert. Well, speak for yourself. Anna Kasparian's been covering this stuff for over a decade. And the other folks, I don't know them very well, but speak for yourself that you're saying you're not, there's no expert. The experts, quote unquote, have consistently, and this was something Dave Smith has reiterated, and I completely agree with him on, the experts, quote unquote, have been consistently incorrect about almost every subject matter in the world for the past 100 years or so. A lot of quote unquote experts have no historical context, they don't look at data, or they purposely deceive the masses. That's why most current media networks and outlets like newspapers and television shows are doing so poorly when it comes to news because people don't trust them for various reasons. Okay? So that's another point of it. Then, for her to sit there as a point guard on a television or on a podcast and say, I don't want to talk about a certain subject matter, and then proceed to walk out. Well, first of all, it's not really your platform to walk out on. If you want to stop talking on your own podcast, that's fine. But there are people who are working there. You have producers, you have interns, you have all kinds of people who help put that show together. And it's completely disrespectful of you to walk out because of you not agreeing with the subject matter. Okay? Containing the subject matter is called censorship. And the whole point of having these podcasts is not to be censored. So the idea that you would voluntarily self-censor your own podcast, which was created in the face of censorship, which Google admitted, which Facebook admitted, which Twitter had to admit, that is completely irresponsible. That's what makes you a full circle clown. And let's just talk about Jillian again for 1 second about something else to her that's important. Jillian Michaels, okay? Jillian Michaels moved from California to Florida because she felt unsafe in California. And when she spoke out about having her home broken into, she felt like the woke mind virus of everybody around her was against her. Okay? So she moved to Florida to be in the free state of Florida, quote unquote, right? Okay. So she moves to Florida. She's then brought in from the Hollywood buffoon class to the normalcy class, the new podcast media class with Pat Bet-David, a huge platform that he just gives her, and she's granted access to this podcast. And what does she do? She self-censors? You talk about missing the plot.
Particular dismantling and his gun in a certain amount of time, this man in the crowd that I believe had been seen in 9/11, how bizarre his texts were between himself and his lover. And
nothing is untrue. The text messages you could read for yourself. You could decide for yourself whether you agree with them or not. The idea that the guy who was there in 9/11, well, it's a fact. It's not a conspiracy. And he pretended to be the shooter and admitted to it and was then released, or I guess then let go because he wasn't. So what was he doing? There's a lot of video evidence showing that the aftermath right after the gunshot or the supposed gunshot was very strange. I mean, all that is right there in plain sight. We haven't gone over it on this channel, but I'm sure you've seen it. So that's not weird.
I was like, okay, sure. Yep, you guys want to go for it. As I go into the main document to write out the skeleton for the show, I see that Israel has been included.
Here we go.
And I say, guys, this was covered a week ago. There's no evidence for this whatsoever. It's the first night of Rosh Hashanah. I mean, we just buried this man. This is kind of a gross narrative, and I think it's dangerous. I think it is completely unfounded. If anything, his business partner and best friend just came out and said, like, no evidence of this. Dave Smith, for goodness sake, was like, if anybody's going to say there's no evidence of that, like, it's.
Nobody is accusing Israel of being involved. That's not what's going on. No one's accusing Israel. This is what makes her a full circle clown. She can't even process in her little head the difference between Israel being accused of killing Charlie Kirk and the concept that they didn't have the rosy relationship towards the end of his life that everybody's pretending that he had, therefore trying to cover the tracks of perhaps a difference of opinion and perhaps a difference in the way that the Turning Point USA movement should head. That's really the part that people are trying to point out. Now, some people are using it to accuse them of something. Well, until there's evidence, we can't accuse. The only correlation that we have is that, okay, I guess his security might have been Israeli security or something. I mean, we'll get there if we're going to get there. But the idea that we can't talk about the relationship between the two not being good, and that perhaps the issues that are going on to this day in Gaza, that Charlie might have had a difference of opinion from his donors, and that we shouldn't even talk about that because we don't want the followers or Turning Point to hear that. That is censorship. Okay? It's disrespectful to the man and what he believed in to just pretend, it doesn't make any sense. So let's not go down that path. It discredits yourself. It discredits the free speech movement. And when you are on the Pat Bet David platform, you're part of the free speech movement. And I'm not here stunning for Pat Bet. I don't know the guy. I don't work with him. I could care less about their operation, But my point is that he is part of, undeniably, along with many others, a movement towards independent media and free speech. And if you're going to go on there and self-censor, then you've completely missed the plot of it. And if you're doing it in a deranged way where you refuse to discuss anything because, well, it's Rosh Hashanah and all these things, what the hell does that have to do with anything? What the hell does that have to do with it? So what? Nobody's accusing Jewish people of being guilty of anything. It's very strange, that behavior, very, very strange. Very, very strange. So I don't know. I just, again, this is what happens when you have a full circle clown. And luckily she's not the arbiter of information, and the idea that some Hollywood clown, who, obviously can't, she herself admits she's not an expert. So she's supposed to be talking about current events and being able to analyze them and have a debate about them. And she couldn't hold her own. And at the end of the day, this is what happens when you take amateurs. And Adam Sizzlick, or whatever the hell his name is, same thing. He's an amateur. This guy may be good at whatever the hell he does for Pat Bet, but in terms of being aware, understanding historical context, being able to debate, he can't do that. And he's very emotional about Israel, and that's fine. But understand that his opinion, which he's allowed to have, is based on his emotions, and it's not based on being able to have an open debate about anything. He's very, very, very contentious when it comes to that subject, just like she was. And, that, unfortunately, it reduces the platform and the credibility of the platform because you're behaving like the mass media. You're dressing people up and presenting them as something that they're not. She's not Jeffrey Sachs. He's not Jeffrey Sachs. You're not getting a point of opinion. They're not Caleb Maupin, even. Shout out to Caleb. You're not getting a point of opinion that's rooted in research and history and data. You're just getting you're getting an emotional reaction for people that have some kind of vested interest, and that's unfortunate. So, maybe one day they'll learn their lesson, but probably not. And we're probably better off for not having her on the platform if she can't handle this kind of thing. So, congratulations. You added yourself as a full circle clown. Happy Friday, everybody.